Las Vegas debut of Elvis Presley at the New Frontier. Last Frontier was the second resort on Highway 91 when it opened in 1942, and it completed a $2 million renovation in 1955 that included more rooms, casino space, new restaurants, and a new showroom called the Venus Room. Inside, the old Western-themed showroom was transformed into the spiffy new 1,000-seat Venus Room, with 5 tiered rows of booths and an expansive stage. The renovated sleek resort was renamed the New Frontier and opened on April 4, 1955. Elvis Aaron Presley turned 21 on January 8, 1956, and on January 27th, RCA Victor released the single Heartbreak Hotel, which became #1 in the nation.
Stage show! Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Elvis Presley.
One day later, on January 28th, Elvis appeared for the first time on network TV. Elvis had no formal music education and could not read music. He played by ear. Elvis appeared in 6 shows over 2 months on CBS. On March 13th, RCA Victor released his self-titled album, which was #1 on the Billboard Top Pop album chart for 10 weeks. It was the first rock and roll album to sell 1 million copies and the first to be #1. In April, Elvis signed with Paramount Pictures to star in 7 films.
My name is Jerry Schilling. I met Elvis in 1954 at the age of 12 years old. I was there seeing concerts in 55 and 56 and 57, the most exciting, raw, animalistic things I've ever seen.
Elvis Presley made his Las Vegas debut at the New Frontier on Monday, April 23rd, with the 2-week engagement ending on May 6th. Presley was paid $15,000 for the 2 weeks that included 2 shows per night. It was Presley's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, who came up with the idea to have Elvis play in Vegas and to tie him to the atomic bombs going off about 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas. The atomic-powered singer, as newspaper ads billed him, was booked as an extra added attraction to Freddie Martin and his orchestra and comedian Shecky Green at the New Frontier Hotel, where a 24-foot cutout of Elvis went up in front of the building. Freddie Martin and his orchestra was performing a stage version of the Broadway musical Oklahoma. Elvis had a 3-piece rhythm band consisting of drummer DJ Fontana, guitarist Scotty Moore, and Bill Black on the bass. 2 days before opening night, the Las Vegas Sun reported that Elvis Presley, unanimously acclaimed by critics as the most important singing find since Johnny Ray, will open in the New Frontier. The handsome 21-year-old rock and roller's appearance in the latest Sammy Lewis production is considered to be the Las Vegas entertainment scoop of the year. 2 years ago, the young giant, he stands 6 feet 2 inches, was driving a truck in Memphis for $45 a week. The young vocalist will be featured in one of the most lavish productions ever presented in the Venus Room. Freddie Martin and his band, comic Shecky Green, the Venus Starlets, and a cast of more than 60 performers will make up the entertainment package. Elvis was the closing act, which was a 12-minute show with 4 songs.
And I caught a ride with this fella who was a room service waiter there. And as we were going to work one day, we saw a new billboard sign up said coming attractions to the Last Frontier was the Freddie Martin Orchestra. I'm pretty sure it was Freddie Martin. And then down in little small letters it said, extra added attraction, Elvis Presley. And I said to this guy, I said, who is Elvis Presley, or what is an Elvis Presley? And he said, she's an opera singer. So we drove on to work agreeing that it would be a lousy show for tips, you know. Nobody would be coming to see that show in Las Vegas, opera, you know. Opening night, we had already served all the dinners and everything, and we had picked up all the dirty dishes and took back to the kitchen. So when Freddie Martin finished there, that first thing, I started to leave and go up to where the busboys all hang out, And all of a sudden the curtains open, and I heard him start to sing Heartbreak Hotel. And that got my attention. And I turned around and went right back down and watched his show. And then it was fantastic. That was my music, in those days. And so after that, I met him several times, and he would stop and talk to us, on his way back to the dressing rooms, because he wasn't but a few years older than me.
The response was polite at best. One high roller sitting at ringside, according to a witness, got up midway through the show, cried, "What is all this yelling and noise?" and fled to the casino. For the first time in months, we could hear ourselves when we played out of tune, said bassist Bill Black. They weren't my kind of audience, Elvis would say later. It was strictly an adult audience. The first night especially, I was absolutely scared stiff. Newsweek reported, though Elvis was a grassroots sensation in the South, he went down like a jug of corn liquor at a champagne party. Shecky Green said, the presentation was terrible. He walked out with 3 or 4 guys. It looked like a rehearsal hall. He wasn't ready. He was scared to death. Elvis's hometown newspaper reported that in the New Frontier's plush salon, Elvis faced a different kind of audience, super critical, sophisticated, wondering boredly what this youngster had, which is so hot. There were no screams, no frantic shouts to herald his entrance, just cold silence, surmounted by the inevitable hum present wherever alcohol is used internally. 3 days after opening, the New Frontier's publicity director wrote in the Las Vegas Sun, "Here is a nonchalant phenomenon whom, as yet, no one has accurately described. Here is a young man who has an inherent ability to arouse mass hysteria, or should I say ecstasy, wherever he goes, yet is unassuming and completely untouched by the fabulous success he has achieved almost overnight. Far be it from me to analyze this handsome 21-year-old lad whose rock and roll themes bring forth squeals and cries not heard since way back when Frank Sinatra first came into his own." The most used phrase coined by writers across the country to describe Presley's singing is a peculiar brand of Western bop. Bill Willard wrote in his Las Vegas Sun review, Elvis Presley, arriving on the wave of tremendous publicity, fails to hit the promised mark in a desert isle surfeited with rock and rollers who play in shifts atop every cocktail lounge on the Strip. The brash, loud brain of his rhythm and blues catalog, and mind you, they are big hits everywhere it seems, which albeit rocketed him to the big time, is overbearing to a captive audience. In a lounge, one can up and go fast, but in a dining room, the table sitter must stay, look, and listen the thing out, which is perhaps why Presley received applause on his opening show edged with polite inference only. For the teenagers, the long, tall Memphis lad is a whiz. For the average Vegas spender or showgoer, a fizz. His musical sound with a combo of 3 is uncouth, matching to a great extent the lyric content of his nonsensical songs. Las Vegas resident Ed Jamieson responded to the Las Vegas Sun Review by writing, "The cat Presley is neat, well gassed, and has the heart. He is not a rock and roller, nor is he a cowboy singer. He is something new coming over the horizon all by himself, and he deserves his ever-growing audience. Nobody should miss him. Parents would do well to take their children to hear him. It would be a good way to get to know and understand your own kids." Vampira, who was the original Hollywood horror hostess, was in Vegas performing in the Liberace show. She saw Elvis on opening night with Liberace and said, "Liberace took me out with this large group. We were going to see as many of the shows as we could that night before we actually opened at the Riviera. This one kid walked in from the wings carrying his guitar. He sort of stood there by the microphone, and he proceeded to sing with all this eyeshadow on. There was much hip thrusting, you know. He was extremely good, and I was stunned. The audience was stunned because they didn't know what to make of it. Finally, somebody booed, and then everyone started to boo." After the show, Vampira told Liberace that she had a headache and she couldn't see the rest of the shows that night with the group. but she actually wanted to console Elvis, and Vampira found Presley by the New Frontier swimming pool. She told Elvis, "Well, I'm a performer. I just saw your show, and what they did was terrible." Elvis replied, "You know, every night before I go on stage, I pray. I talk to God. When I'm standing in the wings to go out, I pray for a nice show, and he always answers me. Tonight he didn't answer me. That's the first time he didn't answer me." This was the first time Elvis had played before older people. When he saw all those white heads and all those glasses, he knew he was in trouble. Elvis and Vampira spent time together for the rest of the 2 weeks, but they never dated because she said that Elvis was too young for her. After the first night, comedian Shecky Green became the closing act, and Elvis was the opening act. Elvis's drummer DJ Fontana said, "I don't think the people there were ready for Elvis. He was mostly for teenagers, kids. We worked with Freddie Martin's orchestra, and here we were, 3 little pieces making all that noise. We tried everything we knew. Usually Elvis could get them on his side. It didn't work that time." The Colonel did a show for teenagers on Saturday, and it was jam-packed with everyone screaming and hollering.
I was from Tennessee, you know. What do we know about Vegas, you know? The autumn leaves drift by my window. They were 50s and 60-year-old people. They were eating their $100 steaks, you know, as the main room, and drinking their $50 drinks and all that stuff. And they don't want to hear that racket we were making, you know. So I guess it turned them off.
On Saturday, April 28th, Colonel Parker and the New Frontier scheduled an extra matinee show for teenagers who were not allowed to attend the 2 nightly shows at the casino. 17-year-old Nancy Heberly remembers seeing the flyers for Elvis Presley's matinee up and down Fremont Street, where teenagers tended to cruise in 1956. Her father was a casino dealer at the New Frontier, and she was laying out by the pool when Colonel Tom Parker went up to her and asked, "Would you like to meet Elvis?" And I just kind of laid there and said, "No, I don't think so." 2 years ago, at the age of 82, Nancy Lieberly said, "I grew up with guitar players. I'd never heard of him. I just had no interest. It's strange now. I mean, hindsight's always better than in the moment." At the teen matinee, Elvis played his full 90-minute road show that cost $1 per person and included a soft drink, while the proceeds were donated to a local Little League baseball program. The Memphis paper reported that the carnage was terrific. They pushed and shoved to get into the 1,000-seat room, and several hundred thwarted youngsters buzzed like angry hornets outside. After the show, bedlam. A laughing, shouting, idolatrous mob swarmed him. He fled to the insufficient sanctuary of his suite. The door wouldn't hold them out. They got his shirt, shredded it. A triumphant girl seized a button, clutched it as though it were a diamond. A squadron of police had to be called in to clear the area. Robert Johnson also reported that Elvis was doing better with the adults during the nightly shows, saying, "The ice began to break, and the joint, if one may thus refer to $1 million playground, began to rock. There was finger snapping. He had 'em, even those who disapproved." Elvis had become the talk of Vegas. At the bars, in the lounges, in the lines, waiting to get in to see him perform, one hears his name. Is this Presley kid really all that good? I just don't understand what he's got myself. Just plain dynamite. After one show, Liberace went backstage to see Elvis. Liberace pretended to play with Scotty Moore's guitar while Elvis played his guitar. Elvis and his band were not interested in gambling, so they spent their off time watching other Vegas shows, including a lounge act named Freddie Bell and the Bellboys from Philadelphia, who were performing at the Sahara Lounge. They were an early version of rock and roll that sang a song called Hound Dog, a blues song that Willie Mae Thornton had been singing since 1953. Elvis liked the song so much that he recorded his own version, and it became his #1 selling record to that point. Within weeks, Hound Dog was incorporated into his shows.
So Elvis was really nice, and he loved Hound Dog. He loved the song. I got one of my 45, took it to Colonel Parker, gave it to Colonel Parker, and said, this is for Elvis. And they got to New York. 4 weeks later, they recorded it. Meanwhile, thinking I'm an astute businessman, I call Chicago Mercury Records, who I was recording for, and I talked to the A&R man. I said, Elvis is going to do Hound Dog. I said, get ours out, and we'll pick up some of what they call tail sales. You know what I mean? You pick up some of the sales along with his. If they don't have his, you buy yours. Well, they waited 8 weeks. In 8 weeks, Elvis already sold like 6 million.
Ralph Pearl in the May 1st Las Vegas Sun said that Elvis shakes and shivers like he is suffering from itchy underwear and hot shoes. May 6th was the final show, and Elvis played 4 songs in just over 13 minutes. Ray Bolger, who played the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, was in the audience with Tina Louise, who would go on to play Ginger in Gilligan's Island. They were in Vegas to perform in their show called Spring Fever at the Sahara. Comedic actor Phil Silvers was also in the audience, and in this final show, Elvis dedicated the song Blue Suede Shoes to Ray Bolger and Phil Silvers. One day, Shecky Greene ran into Bing Crosby, who was in Vegas during Elvis's engagement. What is this thing about this kid? Shecky asked the elder statesman of American pop singing. He's a nice kid, but... Shecky, Bing replied, he'll be the biggest star in show business. Elvis told a reporter when he got home, man, I really like Vegas. I'm going back there the first chance I get. Later that year, on November 14th, Elvis was on vacation in Las Vegas, and he went to see Liberace at the Riviera. Elvis sat in the front row, and Liberace introduced him during the show. Afterwards, they met in Liberace's dressing room, exchanged jackets and instruments before playing a 20-minute impromptu jam session. The Associated Press reported that some 200 persons jammed around the pair as they performed. One observer said Elvis played a mean piano, but Liberace said he was an amateur on the guitar, and he sounded like one.
Liberace is here. Tell me about this picture, if you will. This is there's got to be a great story with this. If not, it's a great picture anyway.
Oh, thank you. The first time Elvis Presley ever played Las Vegas, he was booked on a bill with Freddie Martin's orchestra at the Frontier
Now that
Hotel.
right away sounds like a mistake.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the kids loved him, but he wasn't, at that time, he wasn't ready for the adult audiences in Vegas. And Colonel Parker, who is a friend of mine, said, would you come over and do some publicity pictures with Elvis? And so we traded jackets. He's wearing my jacket, and I took his guitar. And this picture went all over the world. And Elvis was so impressed with the fact that I wore sparkly jackets. He said, could I wear a sparkly outfit in my next movie? Would you mind, you know? And
He
so
thought that you owned the rights to wearing a sparkly jacket.
This is his jacket, which I gave back to him.
Yeah, a sedate little number there.
And in his next movie, he wore not only a gold lame jacket, but he had pants to match.
Oh, heavens. So you were, in a way, responsible for a change in his wardrobe.
You know, ever since that picture was taken, we were very good friends. Every opening night, he would send me a guitar, all made out of flowers, and I would send him, on his opening night, a piano, all made out of flowers. He was a real nice guy.
What year was that taken, you know?
That was taken in 1956.
Yeah.
Las Vegas became a favorite getaway for Elvis between his film work and concert tours, but it would be 13 more years before Elvis would perform a second time in Las Vegas. Presley finally performed in Vegas on July 31st, 1969 at the International that had just opened that month with a showroom that was twice as big as any other Vegas showroom, which totaled 2,000 seats. Elvis Presley's 7-year run at the International, later renamed Las Vegas Hilton, resulted in 837 consecutive sold-out shows.